Let's talk a little bit about your current forecasts. I'm really curious. The numbers seem to be getting worse and worse and worse. How close are you now to your kind of worst case scenario?
That's probably the most difficult question for us. We have worsened our figures every 3 weeks, considering the set of measures that have been implemented by governments and the length of the possible travel restrictions that they have announced that has been extended from weeks to months, and the fact that in addition to these restrictions, we have a very strong recession coming on top. So if you add the restrictions to travel plus the recession, plus the fact that we see some very strong economic impact, negative impact, we expect a recovery which will not be a V-shaped curve, but a U-shaped curve. So something pretty longer and probably slower than we could have expected even a few weeks ago. So to tell you, I think that the $312 billion loss of revenue that we have published this morning is not perhaps the last figure, but we are approaching our worst scenario.
Okay. Well, I look forward to speaking with you again, and I'm hoping at that point that, as you say, the rate of change in terms of the revisions is beginning to slow, because these numbers are incredibly dramatic. Let's talk about the return to service that you are anticipating. You see the sequence being domestic, regional, intercontinental in terms of the way that flights will return. You don't see, though, domestic being up and running in terms of flights resuming until Q3. That does make me question, at what point do you see intercontinental travel returning in serious fashion?
We have prepared a restart plan, and perhaps the most difficult part of this restart plan, the most unknown territory on which we have to work, are the lift of the restriction on travel and the opening of borders, because the end of the restrictions and these openings, they crucially depend on the sanitary or health control measures that we will have to implement following the guidelines of the health authorities. And so what we have expected and we have planned is a phased approach in which we will start with domestic, and we will continue with regional, then continental, and then intercontinental. So, and when you hear some forecasts done by head of states saying that, for instance, the Schengen borders will probably stay closed until the end of summer, you can expect that the return to intercontinental, a significant relation, will not happen before Q4.
So, Mr. de Juniac, you represent, about 300 airlines in 120 countries or so. I want to ask you for your reaction to Larry Kudlow's comments literally in the last couple of minutes that any aid to airlines, US airlines, would need to entail a taxpayer stake. So if US airlines get some aid from the government, taxpayers should get a stake. Would you be in favor of that kind of an arrangement?
I will tell you, we have no preconceived conclusions. We desperately need the aid of governments, and we thank governments because they have been very open. But we leave to governments the potential solutions they want to implement. It can go from credit loans to facilities, cash facilities, to guarantees, to capital injection, even to capital increase. So the best solution is probably adapted to the situation of each company. So if one solution is to take some stake in some airlines, it's possible. If it's not needed, it's not obvious. So we have to implement customized or tailored measures adapted to the situation of each airline and of each country.
Yes.
In which the structure of the ownership could be different from one country to another. So we have no preference. We desperately need some cash. That's the point. The key point, the urgency for this.
Are your members concerned that some of them will get a better advantage over others in this time, depending on where they're situated and who their governments are and the type of policies they implement? Is there anything you can do to ensure a level playing field, as it were?
What we say that we of course would like the government intervention to be fair. And not to give some non-justified advantages to some airlines compared to another. But we have to recognize that considering the emergency in which we are, what we need is a government intervention to save our members, whatever is their situation. And of course, at the end of the day, we will see if everything could be have to be fair, have to be balanced, if it needs some capital injection, and so as a consequence, a public participation in the stakeholding of airlines, everything. But now we need very quickly, that governments, intervene. That's a key issue. Urgent.
One final quick question.
Yes.
There is a debate raging on both sides of the Atlantic as to whether or not carriers should be forced to give passengers refunds or whether vouchers are an acceptable means of compensation. Where do you sit?
We have strongly advocated in favor of using vouchers for one reason, because it minimizes the cash drain on the airlines. And as I told you, we desperately need some cash, and so we want to avoid by any means any cash drain. We have estimated that the unflown tickets, the amount of unflown tickets until the end of May, the value of that is $35 billion. It's an enormous amount of money. And so that's the reason why we have proposed vouchers instead of refunds. We understand that for some passengers it creates a problem. We do not that for pleasure. We do that because it's a matter of survival for the industry. And so we propose vouchers, so people keep their right to fly. We have proposed to the EU also to have a delayed refund. So to give the choice to the passenger between vouchers or a delayed refunding in 6 to 9 to 12 months from now, a period during which the situation in terms of cash for the industry would be better. Otherwise, we will die. And nobody will be able to fly.